Can Apple maintain its growth trajectory with the new iPhone 16 in such a saturated market? And what really separates this device from its rivals?
Well, first of all, Dan, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. So, I mean, it's interesting. You know, I was at the event today in Cupertino, and, you know, I have to say, I didn't feel like the energy was the same as I've seen in some of these previous Apple events. I mean, pretty much everybody knew what was coming, and what came was what everybody expected. And, you know, I mean, as Steve said in that segment there, you know, it's incremental improvements. And that's not enough, I think, to really drive a major super cycle, which some people had suggested was going to come. There was this hope or thought that new AI features being powered by this new phone would trigger a whole lot of sales, but it's a long process. And I've talked to a lot of Apple executives as well, and they know that. They know this is going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time for everybody, not just Apple, to be clear. And the bottom line is, most of the stuff they have, other people have, other people may do it better. And of course, you may be able to do many of those things on existing iPhones. It's just that you're not going to do it on the device. So that's, you know, that's the difference here. To your competitive point, you know, in the markets where Apple is strong, like the US and many parts of Europe, and in China, I think they're going to do well. There are big questions in China, not only from Huawei, but also, frankly, from how many of these AI features Apple's going to be able to implement in China. So that becomes a big competitive question as well.
You know, really fascinating insights there, particularly with regards to the vibe check in the room. You say the energy wasn't necessarily there. I think that's absolutely fascinating, because at the same time, the bulls like Dan Ives at Wedbush Securities, for example, say Apple Intelligence, this new launch, is going to be the launch pad for the consumer AI revolution globally. Look, the reality is, though, Apple Intelligence isn't ready. It looks like Apple is actually setting us up for another incremental upgrade cycle here. So what's your view on that? And will it drive the device replacement and upgrades that Apple seems to be pretty desperately seeking now?
It's a great question, Dan. So a couple things I will say. You know, as I said before, they are a little bit behind, but the important thing to remember, there are two big things to remember. Number one is Apple has a huge audience. So anything they do impacts more people than any other vendor, because there are so many people who are going to buy iPhones just because, hey, it's time to get an iPhone. That's number one. So that always influences their impact. The other thing is Apple does typically do a pretty good job of taking features that other people have and just making them a little bit easier and more intuitive. And I'll give you a good example today. So quite a few companies have summarization capabilities. The way Apple showed it, at least one example, was take your emails and your notifications and summarize them, so that instead of when you glance through your emails, you only see the first 2 lines of text and you can't tell what's going on, it will summarize the entire email in 2 lines of text. So you can quickly see, and then it will also prioritize those. So I think that was very cool. Now, to be honest, I think everybody's going to replicate that very quickly, because it is a good idea. But at least kind of Apple led the way here. And the question is, can they continue to do that and push AI forward to, in fact, becomes a launching pad? But again, it's going to take a while, as you said. So I don't see it happening overnight, or even for several months.